Okay, we're going to fly from Hawaii to the west and a little bit to the north. And we're going to be going over to Eugene, to Oregon, to Eugene, where it's been nearly 50 degrees recently, to my beautiful god brother, Sriman Jagannatha Prabhu, who I'm glad to say that whenever I have met him, he's one of the few people in the Sangha that I can hug, slap on the back, give him a punch, and know that I'm not going to break anything. The guy's huge, like a tree. He's got a big, big heart. He's a beautiful bear. I think we're related as bears. And he's does a lot of business in property. He looks after a lot of Maharajas. If you ever stay at Jagannath, actually, I've never stayed with you, Jagannath. I'm looking forward to doing so. I'll make sure I have a big appetite when I do, because I hear every Maharaj that's ever stayed with you is never, ever underfed. As you can see, he's got beautiful deities in the background there. Jagannath Prabhu was actually born in Latvia. For those of you that are not too hot on geography, that is in Eastern Europe, used to be part of the Soviet Union, is now independent along with Estonia and Lithuania. It's a Baltic state. And that's where Jagannath Prabhu came from. He actually met the devotees in 1992 in Latvia, following Tripurari Swami, who kindly brought him over, and he emigrated to the United States of America in 1997 and met Srila Gurudeva in 1996. I think I met you pretty early. I probably met you by 1998. I remember sitting having yogurt with you outside of the Govardhan temple, or maybe we were drinking buffalo milk or something. I remember our first conversation. And Jagannath took Harinam and then Diksha in the year 2000. He's a beautiful, open-hearted, big-hearted, straight-talking, very honest, very generous person who's always looking for seva to render. So I'm very grateful that he's agreed to share his Pushpanjali today. So, Prabhu, the floor is yours, and look at your beautiful smile. Thank you so much for coming.
Don't forget about your offer to wrestle when we come to Gopinath Bhavan next time.
My offer for wrestling remains totally open.
Good.
It could be quite amusing. Yeah.
So everybody can hear me okay, right?
Perfect. I think pretty good. Are you good with this? Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, great. So, Gurave Gaurachandrai Radhikai Tadale Krishnai Krishna Bhaktai Tad Bhaktai Namo Namaha. Yashodanandan, very nice to know you. And I'm seeing so many other wonderful names here, like Madhavrat. I just heard Gopa, got to know Gopa, and very nice to see Budar sitting there. So that brings a lot of joy to me. Seeing these devotees I got to know over the years. And yeah, I guess I'm not a very usual speaker. I'm one of those shy ones, but when you said shy, some are shy, some are confident. I think there's some confidence about it too. So it gives me a good opportunity, at least for my own sake, to speak out. You should, when you said yesterday, two things devotees usually speak about Gurudeva. One was his teachings, and it skipped my mind. Maybe it was a British term. What was the other word you mentioned?
What was the first one?
First one was teaching.
Oh, the teachings, the Vani. Yeah. The second one is personal experiences with Gurudev, but sometimes also people link the two. So sometimes people express their personal experiences and then reveal some Vani through the personal dealings.
So Gopa just spoke, I think, wonderful things about Vani, and I'm gonna bring everybody down the level, probably more into a personal experiences with Gurudeva. That's what I will speak. Since I'm not so attracted yet to higher things, for me, it's very technical, a little bit esoteric, kind of like that. So that's, I think, where I will stay mostly. And I apologize to all the devotees who are listening. I'm going to start picking this up gradually. I'm not used to speak too much, but recently when I was in Badger Festival, by the way, I met Shravan Kirtan, and I went out to, when Gop said, make me dance, what Prabhupada said, we just came out with a new CD, Make Me Dance. Prabhanu Prabhu in Roseburg, Oregon, has composed all the songs and lyrics. So I just wanted to show that to devotees. And so I wanted to say also what I heard recently in Badger Festival is that someone asked the Gurudeva recently why, when Gurudeva wrote his book about our Param Gurudeva, Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj, why there is no much relationship written between Gurudeva and his guru. And Gurudeva said, you know, he wrote this to glorify his guru, not himself. So unfortunately, again, I'm bringing you all down a little bit. I'll just talk almost like a materialist, how it all started with me, how I met Gurudev. So I still remember back in like very early 90s, maybe like 91, I saw some devotees selling books on streets in Latvia. And I was attracted when I opened this book. There is this yogi sitting from famous Prabhupada's book, Easy Journey to Other Planets, with his eyes like rolled up. And I thought, this is all what the yoga is. And eventually I ended up buying one of the books. It was in the capital of Latvia, Riga, in a tunnel where pedestrians walk. And this devotee, she sold me Bhagavad Gita. I wanted to buy Science of Self-Realization, but she said, you just need to buy Gita. And she wrapped this book into a temple newspaper. I didn't know there is even a temple in this capital of Latvia. So when I unpacked the book, I saw this newspaper and there was a temple address. So that's how I first met devotees back in 92, and gradually things, you know, started to develop. I was so happy actually to see someone sitting on the floor, you know, with the crossed legs, because I've done some hatha yoga myself during the high school, and I was dreaming about all kinds of mysticism, you know, how the yogis do this and that. But here I met first time those who can sit on the floor with the crossed legs. And gradually I understood this is something else. It's not just about asana. It was like an elevator. You can elevate, don't have to go through the bodily exercise, pranayama, all of that. You can just sit in an elevator and go up to prema practically. So, but after a while, it took about like 4 years, I understood that all the gurus who come to the temple in Riga, Latvia, there were 11 of them. I even wrote all the names down, of course, figure, you know, none of them are like my guru. You know, sannyasis come and I had conversations with them. And I still had this conception kind of like, okay, I'm choosing the guru, but then I start hearing also, of course, that the guru eventually has to choose you. What happened is back in 1996, one of the wonderful Swamiji's disciple of Swami Prabhupada, Purnachandra Prabhu, allowed me to go to India and see other gurus. I told him I don't have anybody I could take as my spiritual master. And so I was on a way to India. I remember I arrived in India, and for about 1 month, I had a little spiritual journeys in India. I went to Prabhupada's Mahabhishek. It was Prabhupada's centennial year in Kolkata. That's where I met Bhagavat Maharaj, who is staying with me right now. So, and then I spent a couple of weeks even in Himalayas and traveled, you know, Krishna conscious journeys. And finally, it was time to go to Vrindavan to join Bhakti Shastri course in Krishna Balaram Mandir in Vrindavan, India. But for some reason, the bus took me to Mathura, okay? And I thought, okay, this is probably Vrindavan. I'm seeing the temples, right? But I walked out of bus and a bus stop, and I'm in Mathura, like they say in India. I think in English would be Mathura. So what I found out shortly is that this is Mathura, and there's no buses, no trains going to Vrindavan because today is elections. And I heard from different sources that elections can be maybe once a 3 years. And I was wondering, how could I catch that day that I can't get back to Vrindavan where I was actually going? And then one of the Western brahmacharis at that time, his name was Radhanath Das, now he's Damodar Maharaj, told me to come to his temple to take prasadam. It was noontime. Otherwise, I was ready to take my bag and just walk over to Vrindavan. It was like 16 kilometers. I still had a bag from Jagannath Puri. The straps even broke off. Now, what happened was shortly, I arrived at Sri Keshavji Gaudiya Math, and I never heard about Bhaktivedanta Narayana Maharaj, anything about Sri Keshavji Gaudiya Math, and I'm stuck here in Mathura. I can't go to Vrindavan. And I was very surprised. Who are these wonderful, wonderful devotees around me? Vrindavan Vilasini was there. Eventually, Shamarani came some days later, actually. So many other names like Jag Mohan Vishaka was there. And that night, I remember the darshan was arranged with Bhaktivedanta Narayana Maharaj. And I still remember, his eyes, like one of my godbrothers says in Los Angeles, when he looks at you, it alters your DNA practically, that look. And the very kind question, what are you doing here? And I said, I came to India to look for Guru. So I still remember that day. It was so unique. And throughout all this time, I understand still very clearly, just like it was back then, that who was behind this? Because it was something out of I couldn't, it was beyond my mind, beyond my intelligence. And I only understood that I was guided by Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada to come to lotus feet of Gurudeva. So, and then what happened is I was very lucky to attend that Braj Mandal Parikram back in 1996. So what I was thinking is to share some of my memories, like my relationship with the Gurudeva, how it all started. I still remember in a Modi Bhavan, I think is the name where we stayed near Govardhan. It was like late night, and Gurudeva was there with Trivikram Maharaj sitting. Most of the devotees were sleeping. And I just somehow walked up to them, sat down nearby, and they both were looking at me. I'm telling this story because one time Sudevi said that I need to share this story to some others. And Trivikram Maharaj looks at me and says, you see, Maharaj is going now to play with gopis. It's a late night now, all night he will go and he'll be with gopis. They're both looking at me. And I'm like, what is this, like a joke or something? And it's only 3 of us. So, but then I understood that it's not some joke. It looks serious, the way even Gurudeva looks at me. Will I understand this or not? still remember that kind of intimate moment back then near Govardhan. And then I remember one of those Govardhan days, we went to do our offerings for Govardhan Puja. And Gurudeva said, this was like my very first time in India also, and Gurudeva said, you know, that devotees pray all kinds of things to Sri Govardhan, but they should pray only for Radha Dasyan. So I'm like a new boy in my 20s. Somehow I happened to be here with the small Bhagavat, whom Swami Prabhupada held his hands in his last moments and begged Srila Gurudev to help his disciples. So somehow I heard Gurudev say that, and I very sincerely tried to pray what he says. And then we all like walk back, you know, after the puja is completed. I remember Gurudev even said how many preparations were offered. And there I'm like walking, and suddenly I'm looking up, and Gurudev stands and looks at me. And it's one of those things you can never ever forget. The way he looked at me, and it wasn't just like for a second. Usually he quickly looks at you, but he was like a little like impressed. You know, who is this soul? And I could understand that he knew what I just did, that I prayed sincerely. So I heard some devotees say that what was the most impressive thing from Swami Prabhupada was his look, his view when Prabhupada looked at you. So I will always remember that Gurudev's look at me. It lasted quite a bit, and why was he looking at me like this? So just shared some memory. So I understood that Gurudev should be my spiritual master. And I remember I asked him for initiation in Barshana that year. But he asked me some tricky questions. So basically I was tested quite a bit. Those days it was different. You know, there were no Russians, for example. I was like the only one from Soviet Union there. Sometimes actually there was one Russian devotee came to visit. Now he's Gurudev's disciple, Jivan Krishna Prabhu. He used to be disciple of another ISKCON guru. But like, it was different. Like a few years later when Gurudev was traveling, maybe even like a couple of years later, you could just go to senior devotee and request that you want to be initiated. And then your name could be put on a list. But back then, Gurudev tested these new disciples, so to say. He didn't really want to. And one time he even told me, you know, that I don't need disciples. So I ended up that year not even taking initiation, right? And just like along with Prem Prayojan, who stayed with Gurudev for another 8 months, and then was initiated eventually. So anyhow, that was back then, those early days back in '96. But at the same time, I felt like that I received so much mercy from this highly advanced devotee, Bhaktivinoda Narayana Maharaj. It was very, very special time. You know, he was testing you hard. Nothing was just easy. Nothing was just given. But I will never forget that first year of 1996. Some time went, and I did receive initiation from Gurudev, and I wanted to share like a couple of things from Hawaii. I realized that the moments when something happens unexpectedly leave some very strong impression, just like what happened to me in Mathura back then. So one of those moments was I arrived in Hawaii. It was in Oahu, the Vrindavan Prabhu's house where Gurudeva stayed. And I just came there and I walk up, looking at the property where the festival will be. And then suddenly this person walks around the corner of Vrindavan Prabhu's house towards me and just looks up and goes, "What's your name?" And yes, I was already initiated back then. It struck me like Gurudeva was alone. He kind of walked around there, and then some others followed him. And I was just struck because of the simplicity of this personality. He comes up to me and just "What's your, how are you? What's your name?" And we had a brief conversation, and I was just so struck that I eventually stood and I had to say, "Oh, Gurudev, you're like a boy." So I saw this quality of my spiritual master, this extreme simplicity. He wasn't like some acharya, some guru walking around the corner up to me. So I wanted to express one of those moments. And then I remember I used to go to Hawaii for Gurudev's Vyasa Puja, I think at least 6 times. And that time it was in Maui. One time I had this conversation with Gurudev in Maui. And I asked almost a political question, so why is it so that some God brothers of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, they quarrel between themselves? Why are there these, disagreements, these fights going on? And Gurudev was sitting there in front of me and just said, one who thinks that Krishna and Radharani always has good relationship, who is he? And I didn't know what to say. And then Gurudev said, he's an idiot. They always quarrel. So I just have this very bright memory. And if normally when you spoke to some a worldly person, you come up with a question maybe the person doesn't like or so, they would not be very happy. But at the end of this conversation, I remember that deep affection for me. Gurudev just showed, he spoke to me, and he even with his hand went like that at the end of it. So just sharing some memories, whichever will come up right now for the moment, because I was thinking before speaking that, I will always be somewhat unsatisfied what I say. There's so much more to say. How I was with Gurudev 14 years, traveling him one time for 6 months, wherever he went. He was in England, back in Birmingham. We had a festival in 2001. Then went to Gurudev to Moscow, Russia, and of course India, these multiple trips. So so for what I can do, just sharing my memories with Gurudev personally. I remember one darshan in Badger, California. I went to that festival every year since year 2001. Somebody was talking about me to Gurudev, yeah, this is the devotee. He's not married and he works, he has his own business. And I remember Gurudev goes what is that? Why is he not traveling and preaching? Right? So a little memory right there. And then eventually, as the time went on, I remember I was writing letters to Gurudeva and seeing him, and had quite a bit of personal interactions. And I was invited by Tamal Krishna Prabhu or Dr. T to come to Australia, where Gurudeva stayed at his house, and be like Gurudeva's bodyguard, basically standing by the gate. So I will never forget those 3 weeks in Australia. Every morning, seeing Gurudev, first thing practically, he looks at me and talks to me. And I was Gurudev's driver, would go to morning walks every day with Gurudev. It was a small, intimate circle, like with Madhav Maharaj, Brajanath Prabhu. Madhubrat was there, I remember Dr. T. And so it lasted like 3 weeks like this, every day with Gurudev, joining his morning talks in his room. So it was so special. I just wanted to mention that at the end of that time, the Murvilambar festival came. And I remember Gurudev now looked like Acharya. He had a garland made, put on him, lots of garlands actually. And there is now hundreds of devotees who ran up to his car when he arrived for the festival. You know, at that time, still remember, I did not need to run and just so that Gurudev sees me. I was still nearby. I saw this all happening, but I understood that now Guru is not some kind of formality. I have a different level of relationship with my spiritual master, and I knew that I could stand on the side. I didn't have to be just next to him always, you know, so just. So it looks like I'm with my spiritual master. It went to the next level at that point. And what I want to say, I think I'm always trying to be in time. Yashodananda knows that. I guess I still have about 5 minutes, but I just wanted to say that my feeling is I wish I had some more time to spend with Gurudev. So much could come, because when you were with him, and I think many devotees experienced this, just in his presence, there was something emanating from him, that love from Radha Krishna, the self-realized Vaishnav. When you are with him, you could feel something. There were times like Nirguna Prabhu told me once, he doesn't know why, but you just had to cry. And I always was hiding, you know, my tears, you know, even when a lot of pictures were taken, I'm a little shy person. I would stay away from that. But there were these moments, you know, it just comes from Srila Gurudev, these moods. It was like so strong, you know, some kind of like a rays of Baba, you know, coming even in our hearts. Like in my case, in this very fallen position I come from, I'm still at it's like you couldn't realize what you experienced in this one lifetime would probably take many, many lifetimes. Those moments you could take like Bhagavad Gita, read a verse, for example, is like completely different quality of being in his presence was very, very powerful. And at the same time, I have to say at the end is, you know, when I started my journey back there in Latvia in early 90s, whatever I did, even yoga, I would never think that I end up here in front of an altar and the deities where I'm at. I didn't know I will be so fortunate to serve all the Gurudev's generals, sannyasis, preachers, And I can encourage anyone. It's a great service to host Gurudev's disciples, preachers. Like this year, for example, I was just looking at my phone. Bhaktivedanta Vaikanash Maharaj was calling me just now. We just spent over 4 months at the Bhakti Ashram. 4 years ago, I purchased this property, which is a church. And, I could almost say like this, if you give a donation, for example, $10,000 to sannyasi or a guru, right? It's a little different than when they will come and stay at your place. They will never forget that. Like in case I was just saying with Bhaktivedanta Vaikanash Maharaj, what kind of relationship you develop every morning, you're together at Mangalartis, that's a different level. And then Siddhanti Maharaj came, and now currently Bhagavat Maharaj is on the other side of this wall. So I take it all like extreme mercy of Srila Gurudev, and in time it comes. So thank you for opportunity to speak. It's not my best today, I guess, but something came out, and forgive if there's lots of faults. That's all on me, but anything good, it comes from Srila Gurudev. Dandavat pranams.
Dandavat Jagannatha Prabhu. When you said Bhagavat Maharaj is on the other side of the wall, I have this cartoon idea in my head that he's just going to walk through the wall and crash through. Please knock on the wall and say to him if he wants to wave at the devotees. No need to speak. We'd love to see his face.
So he could come out and just wave.
Yeah, just wave. We love Bhagavat Maharaj. Yeah. Why not? Can't have Bhagavat Maharaj on the other side of the wall and not say hello to him. Then I want to see if we can get a slightly closer view of those amazing deities.
He was just laying, resting with his oxygen mask.
No, that's dangerous. You don't want to wake him when he's asleep. Anything could happen.
Yeah.
Prabhu, can you beam into your deities a bit closer, because they're fantastic, and we can all get closer darshan. Wow, beautiful, really beautiful. Thank you.
And then I have a Guru Parampara.
Wonderful.
And next weekend on July 11th, these Jagannath deities will have Rath Yatra.
Beautiful. Are you doing a Sankirtan for World Sankirtan Day?
Yes.
Oh, brilliant. Are you down? Have you put it on the website? Have we got you?
Actually, the Rath Yatra will be at Swati Didi's house. She just lives on the other side of this lake.
Okay, I'll communicate to you on WhatsApp. So I loved. By the way, Prabhu, I loved. You came up with a really good line. I don't know if you realized it rhymed. He says you don't know why, but you just had to cry, and I know exactly what you meant by that, because I think what's happening inside of us ontologically is our soul is like the sun is somehow shining through the clouds of our anatas, and is through Gurudev's glance, our soul is feeling once again recognized. Our Swarup is actually waking up and feeling recognized by him. And this is like the cry of the eons. It's the cry of millennia. It's the cry of infinite number of births. So that's a really, really beautiful. I wanted to ask you as well, because you're like the same size as me. Did he used to, when you went up, at the end of class and you went up to get cookies, did he look at your hand and give you 2 cookies?
I think so.
Yeah. That's what he used to do with me. He used to see my hand, which is obviously huge, and then he'd look up like with a little glint in his eye, that beautiful blue eyes, and then with a smile, and then always give me 2 cookies. It was so sweet.
Yeah,
And I know exactly what you meant about the look. The look he gives you is like, you can remember it to this day. It's just, it goes beyond you said it saw your DNA. It goes beyond DNA. It goes down back thousands and thousands of lifetimes. It's just
one time in Laguna Beach, California festival, end of 2001, he slapped me on the shoulder and just said, you should be happy. These personal interactions are very powerful. Back in 1996, it was after Braj Mandal Kartik Parikram, Gurudeva gets up. He was just sitting down along with Bhakt Pramod Puri Maharaj, Bhaktivedanta Puri Maharaj, and others. And on the way out, he walks up to me and does that strong slap on my shoulder. So these moments I'm here to share today.
Yeah. And it's amazing because these moments can be, if you wrote them down, you know, if you were sharing them with people who are not devotees, that they wouldn't necessarily get the impact of them. But this is what's beautiful about these Pushpanjalis, because we've experienced something of this. So when you share your experiences, they kind of light up our experiences. They intensify and help us remember and re-experience what we've experienced with the same guru. Even if we don't have the same guru, we can still re-experience with our guru, because the guru is both one and many. So this is the magic of Pushpanjali. We're all helping to light up each other's heart. And that story you told about playing with the gopis, with Tripurkara Maharaj, and they're just the 3 of you, that's a very intense story. That's really quite extraordinary. And that was the speciality of Gurudev. And what made me really relate to that story is that he somehow inculcated within us, even though we were perhaps at a stage where we hardly had even read the Bhagavad Gita, he could put inside of us somehow the prayojan, the goal, the destination of our spiritual life, the Radhadasyam you were talking about. Even though we knew nothing, somehow he was able to put that seed that was like, would continue to be the guiding North Star, the pole star of our spiritual life for the rest of this lifetime and for eternity. This is an incredible quality, because I always feel like he's the prayojan guru, because without that goal, I mean, I've met devotees that don't understand the goal, and it means without the goal, you don't really understand where everything fits in. So he's mapped out the goal in our heart so that everything that then comes next has some framework, some reference, and some context, which makes his Vani so much more powerful. So I thought that was a very, very strong point. And lastly, I love what you said about him being simple and like a boy. I remember sometimes, I remember him once calling me up, and I was playing volleyball in Brighton, and my mobile went, and it was him. And I didn't recognize him to begin with, because he actually sounded like an 8-year-old boy. And he just won my heart over. It was like, here's my guru, who's like omnipotent and omniscient. And yet he could miraculously, and like a wizard, appear to me like a little boy, so that I could feel protection for him, even though I can really give him nothing that he needs. I mean, it's just an incredible Leela that he has with all of us. So, Jagannath Prabhu, you brought back a lot of memories for me, and I'm sure if you did for me, you did for many other people. Yashodhari, would you like to add anything?
I just want to say that Jagannath Prabhu, you said something that you wish you spent more time with Srila Gurudev and got to spend time with him. And I feel like when I'm on these programs, I feel like I'm spending the most time with him that I've ever spent in my. Anyways, I only had a very short period, but by hearing so many memories, I feel like Gurudev's present, and he's bringing me the memories, and he's going, this is what I am, and this is who I am, and this is your family. So you brought an element to Srila Gurudev that is more of a real like Saka mood that I haven't heard so much about, and it's very, very beautiful, because you hear so many different sides of Srila Gurudev, and I'm so grateful to hear them from you. So thank you so much. That's all I can say is thank you to everyone.
Yashodanandan Prabhu told me a few years ago that presentation, that was actually that first conversation back in Govardhan. Yes, I brought you down out of your room from the guest house, and then we were sitting and drinking the milk. But you told me my presentation is not my strong side, so please accept like it went. My ultimate position, I feel, when I was starting to listen to you, I'm again very happy when I hear what others say, but I guess I had to take this opportunity to speak out myself as well.
Your presentation was great. And by the way, it worries me sometimes when people repeat back what I've said, because I feel like I'm very rude. But I think you're great like that, because I think you're the kind of person that if you're honest, even if I'm wrong, if I'm honest and I'm coming from a decent place, you don't you're not someone to take it personally, which is a beautiful quality. That's how I feel about you.
So glad to join. And
give Bhagavad Maharaj my dandavats, my danda hugs, and tell him Happy Independence Day. Even though it was the terrible day for America, they became independent from Britain. I congratulate him on this special day. Make sure you tell him exactly that. It will make him very happy.
Good. Maharaj is behind that wall I was showing you.
Yeah, fantastic.